All right, this video is about working with some of the more cool and interesting tools available in Adobe Illustrator. I just plugged in my webcam and the webcam is dead, so all I have is audio, so you don't get to watch my ugly mug. How about that? Anyway, so what we're looking at here is a couple of words, right? Based off of our little list of phrases that we've got. And I just picked instant gratification. It's got, a little bit of contrast in terms of the immediacy of the word and the kind of the long-term happiness of the second word. So there's a kind of neat contrast there. Anyway, what can you do with text once you have it in a configuration that you like and you have the typefaces that you think are working well? Well, you add color to a type just like anything else. You select it, you click on the color thing, and that brings up the color menu, or you can double click on it and it brings up the full-on color picker. Okay, so same thing as it was what we've been doing there, okay? You'll notice that I have a bunch of windows here, right? Little menus, right? And so they're all along the left side of the right side of my screen. And I set this up this way for efficiency, because instead of having to go window, gradient, window patterns, whatever, you just have everything over here. You flip it open, flip it closed, flip it open, flip it closed. It's pretty handy. So the windows that we're going to need in this particular exercise here is going to be in the type menu. We're going to need character. In the transparency, we'll need that. The transform window is handy to have open. Stroke, of course. Then we will need, gradient and the color window, and I think that'll do it. There's a lot of functionality in here that you could get in trouble with. And since we are basically working with type, I'd rather you not get involved in all of the other things like graphic styles or brushes or brush vector packs, or any of these other things. They're fun to play with, but it's a lot more than we need for this project. I just want to show you some of the basics. Okay, so here we have a piece of text. And as long as it's just a plain old block of text, you could still edit it, make changes, and so on. If you want to make any alterations to this, there's a very few things you can do while it maintains being text. For example, you can put a stroke on it. And let's put an orange stroke on it. And then that stroke can get larger. We can play around with a 5-point stroke. So there's some cool things you can do with that, or not, right? We can put some effects on text just as text. So we can go into effects, and then we can go into, say, stylize, for example. There's a lot of things you can do in here, and that's why I'm kind of not going there, because it will end up just mucking up the type. And it's fun to play with, but I'd rather you just focus on the type for now. However, you can do things like put a drop shadow on things. And so the drop shadow window will pop up, and then you can click the preview button just to sort of see what it looks like. And you can use the little arrow keys up and down to adjust where the drop shadow is and how dark or how bright it is. And you can also put in an effect, a number like 50 or something like that if you wanted to. There are also some pull down menus that are kind of fun. And so these are something that you just you just play with them and sort of see what happens. I'm going to cancel this for 1 minute and let me move this up for a second. And then I can show you a little bit of what I'm talking about here. So in the effect, and then in the stylize, we'll go to drop shadow. And then we'll put the preview on. And then you can sort of play around with these different effects. and they do different things based on the layer above and the layer below. So it's kind of fun to kind of explore it a little bit. But for the most part, you know, that's kind of how it works. You can see that it makes some small effects on the background there. I'm going to just say cancel for that and move this back down. And then that's about all you can really do with the text as text. Okay, so in this case here, we can still edit it. Now we can turn it into an outline, and then that changes everything, because once it's an outline, it becomes a vector shape, not text, and you can't change it anymore. Okay, but you can make a lot of cool effects. So I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to drag a copy of that down here. So now I keep my real text in case I misspelled something or whatever. But my lower text now, I'm going to, there's a couple ways to do this. The easiest thing is just right click on it and say create outlines. Once that happens, you can't edit it like text anymore. So it's locked in stone. And so that's, you know, if you made a mistake or you want to change it, all you can do is change the scale and some of the effects we're going to show you. So say you wanted to create a little bit of transparency on that. And so I've got my transparency window open here. And my transparency could be, I don't know, 50%, whatever, right? So that's something you can do. All right, I'm going to just put that back to 100 for a moment. So that's something. You can put a gradient on it. So there my gradient window is right here. I have these grouped in a cluster so that these are tools that you might use together. So in the gradient tool, you basically have a couple of types. You have a linear and a radial gradient, and that's about it. Okay, so we're going to pick linear. And it by default puts in this silver gradient. Now you can change the angle of that gradient. And if you want to change the colors, if there's just black and white, when you click on it, you only get white or black. You don't get any options, right? And you get an opacity option here, but you don't get any options here. So what you have to do is use the swatches. Because if you click on color, nothing happens. But if you click on swatches, and then you just apply a color, any color, then you can actually edit the colors. So now if I double clicked on this, I could click on my color palette, and then I could get a full color range of things that I could do. Okay, so let me do that again, because I know people are going, huh? Okay, so I changed my text. Let me undo that one more time. Undo. Okay, my text is now real text. Okay, so right click on it, create outlines. Okay, cool. All right, you change the color just like anything. You put a stroke on it just like anything. Okay, so it doesn't matter. All right, so if you double click on the color, you can change the color. Okay, if you want a gradient, you click on the gradient and it creates a black and white gradient. You can make a linear or a radial gradient. Okay, so then if you wanted to change one of the colors, if you double click on the crayon, you get a color choice, but we don't get colors because it's black or white. So in order to make this work, you have to click on the swatches first, then pick a color. And then when you click on the color palette thing, you get options for changing your color, right? So you can then change it to blue or green or whatever you want to do, right? Okay, so you can also change opacity here in case you were, wanting to do that. You can make it 20% or whatever. And what that does is it changes the opacity of that color. So basically, if I were to bring this up onto, you could see the letters through it, right? So you can change opacity and you can change color from this little crayon. And the same thing works over here. Let me just change this to 90 degrees so it looks kind of cooler. And then we can change the color here. And the same thing happens, right? Because it's black, I don't get anything in the color department, so I've got to select a color and then go back to my color, and then I can change it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Then let's see what else happens. You can, you can add colors to your gradient, or you can move the intensity of the gradient. Like say you wanted the purple to be more and then a little bit of that little weird green color there. You can change when that occurs in terms of how slowly or quickly that gradient happens within those parameters. Okay, so that's kind of fun. If you wanted to add another color to the gradient, you simply click near the little bar, the color bar, and then when you click on that, you'll notice that the opacity is already at 58%. So let's put it up to 100 because it remembered what I did over here. And if I double click on that, then I can pick another third color. Let's do something wacky different. How about yellow? There we go. Just so you can see the differences there. And so then, same thing's true. I can change where and how much that gradient is by pulling these little guides and sliders around, okay? So, boy, is that ugly. I always do the ugliest things when I do demos. I don't know what's going on. But that's pretty much how it works, okay? So, anything else in here? You can add strokes, like I said. So if you wanted to add a stroke, you could go to the stroke menu, or you could go to the color menu, or anything else you wanted to do. And let's just pick a red stroke. Okay. And then that stroke, you can open up your stroke window, or you get stroke up here too. All right. So you got a couple of different places to play with that. And you can change the weight, and like I said, there's a bunch of things in here with the graphic styles and the brushes and so on. And I really would prefer you not explore those, because weird things can happen. Like, I mean, just watch for 1 second. Let's add a charcoal stroke. It asks me what I want to do. See, so I jump into a whole new menu here, right? So I don't want to get into this only because it's, more than what you really, it's going to muck it up. Let me just put it that way. I mean, you can see what I just did here, right? And so suddenly, that looks kind of, it looks kind of cool, but at a certain point, you can start really getting out of control, and it can get really weird and ugly and strange. And I just prefer you keep it clean and simple. Okay. So that's my result after all of my manipulation. It has a little transparency at the bottom. So if you were playing around with that, that might, be something kind of fun. The only other thing I want to show you in the transparency option is this thing, and they're called blend modes. And these can be kind of fun. Okay, so it depends on what you have going on. So let me adjust the scale of this a little bit. Let me go to my character. There we are. And let's make it, let's make it 200, 150. How about 150? There we go. Nice and big. Okay, so now if I put that underneath, those two words are going to start interacting. Now, I've got a lot going on with that gratification thing already, so let me go ahead and just grab this dude, and I'm going to drag an option down on top of him, and then I'm going to, let's see if that's the boldest I got. Yeah, that's the boldest. And so then, I'm going to convert it to outlines real quick. Come on, convert to outlines. Thank you. Create outlines. And so once you get into the transparency options, you have these little pull downs, and these are, and I showed you these a little bit, but now that I've got something big and hairy underneath that gratification, you can see that odd things start to happen with these different blend modes. So it's something you can play with. And again, the result is the sum of the two layers of the colors and the effects and anything else that are going on. So, if that was something that you thought might be fun, that might help the message, then that's cool. It's just a tool that you can use to kind of, enhance your design a little bit. All right, so those are essentially the main graphic tools that I'd like you to sort of explore while you explore this project a little bit more. It kind of adds a little bit of depth and dimension. All right. Again, just be careful that you don't overdo it, and yeah, keep it under control. All right.